almost been 4 years since the last debate between Biden and Trump, one that was met with much anticipation. Now, before we watch tonight, we thought we'd look back at some interesting moments from the past debates, see what the candidates had said, and what's happened since then. To start with, while abortion is now one of the top issues for today's voters, Roe v. Wade was only mentioned once during the 2020 debate. As a reminder, this was shortly after Justice Amy Coney Barrett was nominated. Let's watch.
The president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already begun.
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court.
Well, there's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you just
be quiet? And you don't know her view on Roe v. Wade. You don't know her view.
Well, all right.
Trump was also planting the seed for election integrity issues.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. But I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that.
Meanwhile, nobody was talking about inflation. Instead, COVID was a top issue.
40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease.
Trump did go after President Biden on Hunter Biden's laptop. Here's a clip from their second debate.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
Laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this where you're going? This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia.
Gentlemen, I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have to be kidding. Here we go again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President.
They did talk some more about Russia, but only in regards to allegations of election interference, not its relationship with Ukraine. Climate change, racism, and immigration were also issues that they discussed in those debates in 2020.
So I've resurfaced that clip a couple times of the Hunter Biden laptop discussion. I did a radar on it. I think it's pretty entertaining to look back at it now, everything President Biden said there is just wrong, and Trump's exasperation that what are you trying to make this a Russia thing again is dead on. This was shortly after the New York Post Hunter Biden laptop story, which was described by many in the media and then by 50 top intelligence officials, including Dana Bash's ex-husband, as bearing all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Politico then had a headline saying, laptop is Russian disinformation, experts say. We now know years later that there's no evidence whatsoever that it was Russian tampered with, that it was a hoax by Russia, that the information on it is anything but genuine. In fact, the information on it has been used in Hunter Biden's trial to help convict him on the gun-related issues. But it was totally discounted on the basis of, well, experts, intelligence officials said it was this way, so it must be so. There's so much fact-checking in these debates. There's so many mainstream media figures falling over themselves to correct Trump and say that's not true, that's not lies. So I thought it was worth bringing up a clear, unequivocal time. President Biden asserted something that has now been shown to not be true, and we've just kind of memory hold that.
I think that the one thing that I will give Biden credit for is the laptop did not have concrete evidence that he was colluding with Hunter Biden in regard to his positions abroad. But I will say, it was very shocking because it was the first real time in history we saw the CIA collude with the president to push their agenda. So,
that's a little bit of facetiousness.
Yes, this happens every administration since like Eisenhower. But I think with these, debates reflecting back and thinking about Trump saying, well, Roe v. Wade is not on the ballot. It's interesting because Ketanji Brown Jackson voted the way she did in the Dobbs Jackson decision. And so you have that ruling, and Trump was kind of right there because they had the majority that they needed. They had the justices they needed on the court to overturn that case. So was it on the ballot? Did Biden do much to really address the aftermath of the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
Yeah,
Many people say no.
The seeds of Roe being overturned were very much already sown by then. And this has become a liability for Republicans at this point to some degree, although, Trump has consistently said, and others who are seeking the presidency said, some of them on the Republican side, that there ought to be no national abortion policy, and the states are going to do what they're going to do. They're allowed to do that now under Roe, and a very vigorous pro-life position, a very restrictionist policy on abortion has not won yet, in fact, even in very red states, and so that's that. There was a loss at the Supreme Court level recently for that attempt to prohibit in some fashion that anti-abortion drug that we all have so much trouble pronouncing. That was defeated like 8-1, I think. So the Supreme Court is not a monolith. As much as Democrats complain that it's 6 ostensible conservative Republican justices now and 3 liberal progressives, there's still a lot of 9-0 decisions, 8-1 decisions, 7-2 decisions. I was looking over today. There was a bunch of more cases where there was 2 cases that just came out that I haven't had time to quite look at the details yet, where the majority opinion is authored by Neil Gorsuch, who's one of the conservatives, and then the dissents in both cases are written by other conservatives, by Amy Coney Barrett in one case, Ohio v. the EPA, and Kavanaugh in the Purdue Pharma case. So they're definitely they're absolutely not a monolith. There is some difference of opinion significantly among the justices. And I was sorry to see, yesterday we talked about the social media case, Murthy v. Missouri, and I was disappointed that it was a 6-3 decision against my position, with Barrett and Kavanaugh and Roberts and the liberals on one side and Gorsuch, Thomas, Alito on the other. So yeah.
I think it's interesting the way we talk about Supreme Court justices now. Instead of saying, oh, they're an originalist or they're not an originalist, now we just straight up say liberal, conservative. Well, a lot has changed politically. Also since 2020. We've had the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and I mean, looking back on that debate, hearing how they're talking about Russia, hearing how they're talking about COVID, not talking about inflation, it's just very fascinating to think about how much the political landscape has really changed since those debates. The Russian invasion of Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, the inflation crisis, Trump's convictions, Hunter Biden's convictions. There's been a lot that's gone on, and now I'm, after reflecting on it, more interested to see what tonight is like, because we get to relitigate all of that stuff. Much has changed, although some things are just the same, including that the candidates are Joe Biden and Donald Trump, a straight-up rematch, something we've not had in this country on the presidential front in a very long time. I'm trying to think. It's a fun presidential trivia question. What was the last time there was a exact rematch of the previous 2 presidential candidates? It's probably Eisenhower and Adlai Stevenson in the 50s, I think. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's the last time it was the same exact 2 candidates twice in a row. We'll have to double check that. That's interesting. We're gonna have to check on that.
More Rising right after this.